You may need to adjust your agenda for your next trip to Louisville. When I moved to Louisville in 2015, everybody was saying, go do the same old things. Everybody was saying, go to the Slugger Museum, the Ali Museum. Everybody was saying, go to the Kentucky Derby if it's Derby season, or just go to the Downs, Churchill Downs, and catch a horse race. Or if you're of age, go to one of the Go to one of the distilleries and check out one of the bourbon tours. And all of those things are fine to do once. And if you're only going to come to Louisville one time, maybe you should check those things out. But what I learned after living here for several years, and it really didn't take that long, is that locals don't do that stuff. Don't get me wrong, most of us have probably been once or twice to some of those things, but we're not spending our every weekend at the track. That's just not happening. So what I'm going to share with you today is what you really ought to do the next time that you come to Louisville from a local. Now, when I moved to Louisville, I moved for college. So I moved in 2015, and what I really realized was everybody in Louisville, not just college students, love coffee. Louisville is a huge coffee town, and it's one of the best that I've been to, and I've been all over. I'm going to share with you my favorite coffee shop in the city of Louisville. But the reason why is not just that it has the best coffee. It's not just that they get you in and out the fastest, or that it's got the coolest environment. I love the story behind my favorite coffee shop. Now, I'm going to tell you what it is in just a second, but it's based off of a really interesting thing. When I was in college, I studied the Greek New Testament. And this coffee shop has its name taken from either directly the Greek New Testament or one of the first century Greek cognate words. So the coffee shop's name is Synergos Coffee. I talk about it all the time. You've probably heard me talk about it on the channel before, but the word is a compound word with the prefix "sun," which means something in the realm of together or with, and the root word ergon, which means work. So Synergos Coffee is a coffee shop that is named around the idea of working together or being fellow workers. And if you're a Greek scholar, I may have butchered that. I'm sorry, it's been a while since I've studied. But Synergos, I love that idea. That idea of we are not just here to give you something cool. We're not just here to be the highest end product on the market, but we're here to work with you as you're doing your schoolwork, as you're doing your job, as you're meeting with friends to talk about great things and maybe hard things. There's so many ways that this word applies that I think that's a really, really cool thing. And that's why these coffee shops are my favorite. There's one off Preston Highway, which I went to a lot in college. There's also another one off Willis Avenue right next to Taco Luchador, which I talked about in my pros and cons of St. Matthew's video, and I visited there. So you can go check out that video and you can see the inside of the shop, but it's a really cool place and I love it a lot. But you might be saying, Sawyer, that's cool, great for you. I'm not super into coffee though. What else can I do? Well, I'm gonna tell you about my favorite restaurant here in town. And of course, there's like a billion different restaurants here in Louisville. It's an amazing place, and I probably couldn't even put together a top 20 list of my favorite restaurants. There are so many. But I'm gonna tell you about the one that I pick as my favorite today, and I'm gonna tell you why. See, I got married almost a year ago, last May, and I was in charge of the rehearsal dinner. But something went very, very wrong. I called a few months before and I said, hey, I want to have my rehearsal dinner here. We're gonna have about 40 people. We'd like a private room. It'd be really great if you could accommodate us in that way. They said, cool, no problem. And then I thought that they said, call back if you need to make any changes. Well, fast forward several months and it's the day before our wedding. We have our wedding rehearsal and the 40 of us are going to the venue to have our rehearsal dinner. And lo and behold, one of my groomsmen calls me and he says, hey Sawyer, the restaurant says that they don't have a table for us. and my face goes pale. My heart starts beating real fast. My hands get all clammy, and I start freaking out. We get to the restaurant. I go inside. I talk to the people. They say, okay, I understand. Here's what's going on. It sounds like there was a miscommunication. We thought that you were saying that you were going to call us back to confirm, not just to make changes. But what they did for us was, in that room that was no longer going to be a private room, but in that room, they set up a very long table for all 40 of us. And there were people all around us. And what ended up being a really cool experience, could have been a travesty, but it ended up being a lot of fun because the restaurant was able to do some changes for us, and all the people in that room decided that they heard a little bit of the story, and they were all going to buy my fiance and I like enough booze to drown an elephant. Now, we didn't get sloshed in front of all of our friends and family, so if you've got that fantasy in your head, sorry. We maybe had a couple sips, and the reason why is the alcohol at this restaurant, and I'll go ahead and say it, it's Havana Rumba in Middletown, specifically the Middletown location, has the best margaritas that I have ever had. We went to Mexico for our honeymoon. The margaritas there did not compare to the ones at Havana Rumba in Middletown. It is the strongest and tastiest margarita that you'll ever have. And you need to be really careful because they are deceptive. Now, let's say you go there. It's a Cuban place, so you're going to have some fun. You're going to have some Cuban food. And then maybe you might want a show after. Well, the next place that I'm going to tell you about is one of my favorite concert venues in the whole city of Louisville. There's a place actually not far from Sundergrass on Preston Highway. And it's a little bitty shotgun building, very narrow. It's kind of got a lot of like indie rocker vibes. It's not super high end. It's definitely not like speakeasy. It's, you know, it's kind of a trash bar, but that's the culture. And they've got some good drinks. They've got some really cheap drinks. But what's really cool is on the back half, they have a very small concert venue. And we've seen a lot of really good no-name bands in this back concert venue of Zanzibar off Preston Highway. But they can be pretty packed, and sometimes you're not in the mood for that level of like grunginess. So there's another place that I want to tell you about that we saw Penny and Sparrow, if you're familiar with that band, at last year in the summer. It was a really cool spot. It was a place I'd never been before, actually. It was a pretty intimate spot, but it seemed like it was a lot more open than what you could really see. There were multiple tiers. We were all on the floor. It was just folding chairs, that kind of deal. But it was very intimate, lots of call and response between the crowd and the band. And it was super awesome. And that was Headliners Music Hall. So those are two of my favorite spots for shows. There's lots of other places that you could go, but these are two of my favorites today. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you should definitely check those out when you come to Louisville, especially over some of the touristy stuff that is just going to cost you a lot of money. You can get in a lot of these places for a lot cheaper and honestly have probably a lot better of a time. If you're planning on coming to Louisville, then maybe you want to check out some of my tours or videos about other neighborhoods. I'm going to link to a video above for my pros and cons of St. Matthew's video, where I was talking about that earlier and giving you some of the pros and cons of one of the most popular neighborhoods in the city. If you've liked this video, leave it a like, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.